Restorative justice. Do y'all know what that is? Across the country, schools are using it as an alternative to the way we traditionally view discipline. And no, I'm not talking about the kind with the belt, spoon, or shoe. In New York City schools, restorative justice, or RJ, has been around for almost a decade. It's a way to repair harm by bringing together the person who caused it, the person affected, and the community. Restorative justice is about healing, not punishment. It's supposed to reduce suspensions and expulsions, especially for Black and brown students who are suspended 3.4 times more than their white peers. Yet these disciplinary measures place these students at a higher risk of being incarcerated, feeding into a dangerous system, the school to prison pipeline.
There's an African mantra that a child that isn't embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And I started to burn my village down. So since nobody stepped in to save me, I'm going to make everybody's life a miserable hell. And I did that, and it eventually led to me being incarcerated. And it led for them, the system. Now I hate the system because I feel like they don't even care. You just care that I did something, that I broke a rule, I did something wrong, I broke in a car, I went in somebody's house. Don't do that. But what do I do with the pain? What do I do with the shame that I'm carrying? I don't know what to do. And so you put me in a cage because I broke a rule, but it never was healing. And so, yeah, one of the first quotes I read when I started learning about restorative justice was, if a crime is a wound, then justice should be healing. And justice isn't healing. And so RJ probably would have changed my life if I would have had it at a young age.
I'm Autumn Wynn, a junior at a high school in Brooklyn. I'm a restorative justice leader at my school, a trained peer mediator, and a part of C, Students and Educators for Equity. In this position, I've seen the cracks within restorative justice implementations and the promises restorative justice holds. In most RJ schools, they rely on circles, structured conversations with students and educators used for 3 purposes or tiers. Tier 1, building community and trust before anything goes wrong. Tier 2, conflict resolution when something does go wrong. Tier 3, welcoming back people after harm has been addressed. Restorative justice circles draw on indigenous practices and Ubuntu, the South African idea that I am because we are. These practices thrive only when a community is solid. Skip tier 1, the daily work of community building, and everything falls apart. Without shared responsibility, student circles are just like any other class, without a space for real accountability and connection. Bottom line, we need to build that community first. I've led tons of circles focused on healing and community. But you've probably seen circles before. The Lion King, Circle of Life, the evolution poster in biology class, or even that one Post Malone song. Circles represent equity and community, as everyone can be seen, and the circle shape is continuous and is never broken. But the act of sitting in a circle alone does not make it restorative. Community members must work together to create a safe space needed for authentic discussion. But in my school, it's complicated. We have circle time, aka tier 1 circles. Twice a week, we go into a room, sit with our grade, and try to talk. Here's what I see. Students are sometimes disengaged on their phones and no eye contact. Sometimes the topics feel a bit random or disconnected from our concerns as students. And also, there's no discussion on restorative justice, indigenous, and African roots. In a 2022 citywide study on restorative justice implementation in New York City schools, the authors noted that, quote, some students don't care, do not pay attention, or fall asleep during a circle, which is exactly what I see. But don't let a bunch of adults tell you. Let's hear from some actual students at my school.
I feel like it could be structured better. I feel like not much gets done.
It's a free period, low-key. It's a free period.
Not learning anything.
The study I referenced earlier found that in one district, schools that use restorative justice did not have significant drops in suspensions. However, it shows that when done right, circles can be transformative and support overall student mental health. So, which is it? How can we measure the success of restorative justice here? In under-resourced schools across the city, success may not immediately translate into fewer suspensions. Instead, success might mean improved student-teacher relationships, reduction in fights, or increased student voice. In many schools, adults run circles without fully engaging with students. Here are some common barriers for both teachers and students. For starters, the lack of context. Students aren't taught the roots or purposes of restorative justice, so they stop caring because they don't know. There's also inconsistent buy-in. If administrators treat restorative justice as a checkbox or as a resume builder rather than a whole school culture shift, staff participation becomes uneven. Lastly, there are burnout risks. Teachers often juggle regular classes alongside restorative justice responsibilities, and without proper training, they can burn out.
And as a teacher, when do you stop and say, what's the impact of your experiences in your life? When does a teacher check in with the students and say, hey, before I teach y'all anything and we learn about algebra or whatever it is today, what are y'all holding? Like, can y'all really share one by one? Like, let's just check in. Like, what are we really coming into the class today? Because maybe what I planned on teaching today is not more important. Maybe somebody went through a loss and it's hard for them to even focus on whatever I'm teaching today. Like, as teachers, as facilitators, as whatever we're doing, we have to check in with the people. And so, as that teacher that makes that comment that's very disconnected from the history of your people, what would it be like if she could have used that as a learning moment to understand that I have a student that doesn't agree with the statement I just made and has a different perspective of this. And so, like, how can I learn from my students? Yeah.
Before we go any deeper, I want to get this off my heart. Underfunded schools like mine that predominantly serve low-income students of color are not the same as well-resourced schools with lots of staff and time for training. Restorative justice drops down the priority list for underfunded schools, especially when students need help with accessing food, water, and mental health support. There are many efforts to expand restorative justice practices, but they are focused on schools with privileges that can dedicate time for a whole school transformation. But that does not mean restorative justice can't work in schools like mine. That just means we need to understand what working can and what it should look like, beyond just the numbers. Without trust, connection, and community, you cannot move to healing. That's why Tier 1 is so important. That's also why we need to teach restorative justice history beginning in freshman year. Circles can't just be magically restorative without a cultural foundation. Then, let youth lead. Teenagers connect more authentically with their peers than with adults. Programs like the Circle Keepers demonstrate this impact. Founded in 2017 at Harvest Collegiate High School, the Circle Keepers are a youth-led program that trains high school students in restorative justice practices, including peer mediation and community-building circles. Operating across multiple NYC public schools, they have trained over 1,000 students as peer mediators. They've also testified before the City Council, contributing to the restoration of almost $32 million in restorative justice funding. When youth lead, circle topics align with real student concerns, and the educators shift into a more mentor role, reducing staff burnout and increasing engagement. Now, I'm not saying that adults shouldn't be a part of this. They can help connect students with counseling, academic support, and other services. However, their role must evolve from circle facilitators into supporting systems in these spaces.
If I was quiet, which I normally was, I suffered in silence. So a lot of mine was just like being quiet. Nobody knew. And so like for me, what drew me to restorative justice was just like every voice gets heard. And so like as a keeper, I'm always listening to the quiet voices. What's the folks that aren't sharing anything? Like what are they hearing? Like what do they want to say? So like for me, that was like one of the most powerful things. Like I just wanted to be in spaces where every voice truly mattered. It's not about the majority.
Javon was the quiet kid. He fell through the cracks just like many students do. Now he's a restorative justice educator. He sits in circles with victims and offenders, families who've just lost someone to a crash, and people just trying to heal. He told me that every time he prepares for a circle, he meditates. He visits the very place where harm happened. He brings intention into that circle. That's restorative justice. Thinking of restorative justice just as an initiative or a system is not what it's about, and quite honestly is the opposite of it. It's a way of moving through hurt and hate to heal and love. That's the level of care we need. Stop treating restorative justice like a side activity or a feel-good moment. Let's invest in it. Let's teach it properly. Restorative justice is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to addressing and taking action on oppressive systems put around students. If nothing changes, we can be stuck in a loop, in systems which capitalize off of student ignorance and racism. So I ask you to please start talking, advocating, and spreading awareness around these systemic problems. Encourage students to start telling their stories. Teach the origins of restorative justice and let youth lead. That's the only way we can create real change. Stop speaking for us. Start listening to us and let youth take the wheel.